John Anik and Kenny Florian podcast. John Anik and Kenny Florian.
I f***ing love them. I can't get enough of them.
Let's hear that Boston next.
Big jab there from Duffy, and Frank Mir is hurt now. Down goes Duffy, out cold. Frank Mir does it again. Rock'em sock'em robots here. Oh my goodness.
Hyperbole. There are a couple of absolutely self-involved bullshit artists.
Here are your hosts, John Anik and Kenny Florian.
Oh, good to hear that headshot bang after the bye week, one of three that the Anik and Florian podcast takes all year long. Did you miss us or no? Great to have you back Monday, December 2nd. The year is 2024. It's episode 526 of the Anik and Florian podcast. We are live. KenFlo, how was your Thanksgiving, kid? It's nice to see you.
Oh, I ate so much, dude. I ate so much I can't control myself. I think I need help. My back hurts. There's just a lot of problems going on, man.
Does the back pain have anything to do with the consumption of food?
I'm sure it does, dude.
It might.
I am kind of overweight. Yeah. A little bit.
So I decided to weigh myself after I worked out, and it was a light workout on Thanksgiving Day. Don't get it twisted, but did a light strength and conditioning workout on Thanksgiving Day and then taped Anik versus Anik. But I wanted to see how many pounds I would put on from the end of my workout with no water really in me. And then at the end of the day, it was like 9 pounds, but that's not that much. If you think about it, it really isn't that much. Right. And I don't know if it was Taylor Lewan or somebody who publicly posted that they put on 20 pounds or 40 pounds. But for me, it's like at the end of a UFC pay-per-view week, I've been burning it at all ends. Like I could put on fucking 7 real pounds in 24, 36 hours of overeating pretty easily.
Right. And that's the thing. You can't stay that hydrated while you're doing commentary because then you're just taking piss breaks every 2 seconds, right? It's like.
And for the play-by-play guy, unlike you analysts, right? Unlike you pro fighters who actually fought in there, and maybe that's why you guys get to go to the restroom, right? But there are usually 2 of you guys, right? So
you can't.
Daniel Cormier can handle a B-roll package or a walkout if Joe Rogan's in the restroom. But yes, oftentimes I dehydrate myself. So what did you indulge in exactly? I mean, I guess for me, it's like I make a mosh pit of turkey stuffing, cranberry sauce out of the can, and gravy. And I mix those 4 ingredients together. I don't go with the mashed potatoes or the mac and cheese, but yet I have like fifths, right? Forget seconds and thirds, Kenny. I had 5 plates.
Well, listen, Thanksgiving's like a championship fight. It's a 5-rounder. Okay. And I did not pace myself. That's my bad. I'm inexperienced apparently. And it started off with my mother-in-law making some French toast that's baked. So like you have a heavy breakfast and then we're munching on like all these cheese and crackers and fruit in the day. And then like, I'm already full. And then a couple hours later, it's like, hey guys, come on in. Thanksgiving dinner's ready. And you're like, I'm not ready. I wasn't prepared, dude. I did not prepare appropriately.
Those Gilmores do not mess around. South Carolina's finest. So you were not in Massachusetts at all for Thanksgiving. So you were in South Carolina or North Carolina, or do you not want to reveal? Or you
good old Southern Thanksgiving? I was in North Carolina.
North Carolina. So they came to you.
Yeah.
All right. Are you armed right now? Is there a pistol on your hip or no?
I'm not. I feel like I got shot in the back, but other than that, good.
Is there a gun in your office? You don't have to answer that question.
Or it's like, no.
All right.
Maybe. Okay.
Great to have everybody with us. Hope you all indulged every which way over the Thanksgiving weekend, but it's all systems go. We're right back at it. Last pay-per-view of the year. It is UFC 310. We're going to dive into all of that. And in about an hour, Kenny and Petrie are going to give us 11 predictions on UFC 310. So this isn't like the most star-driven pay-per-view in the world necessarily, right? It doesn't necessarily have the sex appeal of some of these other pay-per-views, but KenFlo, there's a lot of meat on the bone. There's a lot of depth here. I got to think, though, that you were surprised when I sent the email a few days ago and I asked for 11 breakdowns. No?
I was a little surprised. I was a little intimidated. But again, it could be a gimme. It could be very helpful to my standings here to finish the year as the champ. Anyways, it's a lot. And these fights are tricky, man. They are really tricky. I did a lot of fight study and I'm not sure it really helped that much, to be honest.
So among the fights that we are not going to break down today, Clay Guida versus Chase Hooper, Cody Durden, who is the number 14 ranked flyweight in the world, taking on Joshua Van. We will talk about Chris Weidman and Eryk Anders a little bit. Ray Longo coming up in about a half an hour, but there are so many good matchups and ranked fighters on this fight card that I had no choice as the producer of this program to make these guys go 11 deep. So that's coming up later. Ray Longo has wheels up shortly to Las Vegas. A lot to get into, but a lot to recap on the back end since we were not with you last week. So to that end, headlines on the Anik and Florian podcast brought to you by Cuervo. Now's a good time to enjoy the tequila that invented tequila. And I did have some Cuervo Cristalino, I believe it's called, over the Thanksgiving holiday. Kenny, any alcohol for you at all over the last several days or no?
A little bit. I'm not a huge drinker, but I did indulge in some pretty feminine cocktails, little pumpkin vodka spice type things, So,
nice.
Yeah, I'm a sucker.
You know what I've been drinking a lot of these days? Non-alcoholic beverage.
Okay.
Grenadine, Shirley Temple. You like a Shirley Temple, KenFlo?
Good old Shirley Temple. Yes.
So I was informed recently that there is like a spiked Shirley Temple. I forget what it's called, but you have vodka in the Shirley Temple. So the next time I have an alcoholic beverage, I'm going to have the Shirley Temple with the vodka in it. But I got to tell you, man, I'm loving Cuervo these days. I really am. A lot to get into today. And I'm not sure if Dakota Ditcheva likes Cuervo, but she has earned a lot of it. She's leading off our program today, KenFlo. $1 million prize. She wins the tournament. She gets it done by TKO. Body punches in the second round. She is the first woman to finish Tyler Santos. And far more importantly than that, she becomes the first British female MMA world champion, the youngest champion in PFL history. I get the feeling this woman is going to make a lot of money. What a performance. Not the first time she has put away an opponent with strikes to the body. You have called fights of hers in the past. As we sit here on a Monday, all hail Dakota Ditcheva, increasingly a face of women's MMA.
She is very, very good and very, very dangerous and really is the full package, right? She is a good looking girl who is good with the mic and she does her business inside the cage. And she's extremely violent. I mean, she is a finisher through and through. Her mom was a world champion kickboxer, so she has that in her DNA. She's been training for a long time, clearly had a lot of potential as a mixed martial arts fighter coming from Muay Thai and kickboxing. And she really has been putting in the work. She's been training over at ATT, getting her game in order, and she's gonna be a next star. And I'm sure she will end up in the UFC at some point.
She really does seem to be the total package, and I don't say that in terms of her skill set right now. I mean, she's still a developing fighter, but you mentioned the word violent, and seemingly you took it right out of my notes. If you go back and look at what she has done in her career, she's used a lot of different striking weaponry to put people away. And so violence sells, right? I mean, there's a reason Movsar Evloev and Aljamain Sterling are on the prelim portion. Part of that is because they don't fight for the Anik and Florian Podcast Fighting Championship, right? But violence sells. And when you look at Movsar, who might be the best in the world in his weight class right now with respect to Ilia Topuria, and you look at Aljamain Sterling, there's strategy involved promotionally as to why they are fighting there. So I don't want to ask you when Dakota Ditcheva is going to be in the UFC, but I mean, there isn't like a cupboard full of challengers for her at 125 pounds in the PFL, is there?
No, there isn't. And that's the thing, at some point, the PFL is not going to be able to hold on to her for that long, in my opinion. But at the same time, I think it's a great way for her to develop more skills, to get better, to get more experience. And by the time she gets into the UFC, she's going to be a big problem for anyone out there. And, I think it's a rarity in mixed martial arts when you get someone who's really good at destroying the body like Dakota Ditcheva. And she is that fighter. She knows how to destroy your body. And as you mentioned, in a variety of ways, whether it's knees, punches to the body, she's an absolute sniper.
All right, congratulations to Dakota and all of the other PFL winners. I'd like to get to Petr Yan, and it seemed as though a lot of people who I listened to were suggestive that he was just going to be dominant and win this thing 50-45. What were your thoughts on Petr Yan? And I guess as sort of a follow-up, we'll get into it with Ray, but Merab Dvalishvili as this division's champion, really putting Yan over in terms of a rematch as the potential number one contender.
Yeah, well, listen, I think that Petr had a great performance. I think where Figgy ran into some issues, and this is how I saw it maybe heading into this fight, was with the wrestling, right? I didn't think he was going to be overly successful with his takedown game. If he was going to be that, then I thought he was definitely going to win. Petr has a lot of different tools. He can mix things up extremely well. I think he's become much better defensively as well in regards to his takedown defense, and also, how he takes strikes these days. I think he does a much better job of it. Figgy is going to be a problem for a lot of people out there, and for Yan to get a win at this stage of his career against a fighter like that, I think was huge for him. Whether he gets that next title shot or not, I'm not so sure, but it was a great performance.
Merab Dvalishvili, the champion in this division out of Georgia, had a masterful video on social media as he sort of went through some of the contenders, and certainly he was wise to laud Petr Yan's win list. And sometimes you forget about all the people that Merab Dvalishvili has beaten on this winning streak himself, right? Yeah. I think Umar Nurmagomedov should be next, but certainly when you lay out a case for Yan the way Merab did, it holds up pretty strongly, as does his body of work, I think, overall. And the developmental stuff that you talk about, I think, is particularly important, right? Because this guy has learned from losses. It's crazy, as we've talked about in the past, that a fighter on this level could have ever gone winless in 3 straight fights as he did in the UFC. But nobody's going to bat an eye if Petr Yan gets a championship opportunity. But do you think it will be Umar, or do you think that, this Merab push is actually going to materialize into a title shot for Petr Yan?
It could happen strictly on the fact that the UFC loves to have title fights on their pay-per-view cards. And, the fact that timing wise, it may not work out for Umar Nurmagomedov. Right. So they may try to put together this fight, especially if Merab is all gung-ho about it. And for Petr Yan, it's like, how does he say no to a title shot if he is offered it, even if it's in kind of a couple-month turnaround? He may, but those opportunities do not come around often. So I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens. It could very well happen. Who knows?
What do you think is a tougher fight for Merab? Do you think it's a rematch with Petr Yan or a fresh matchup with Umar Nurmagomedov? And I apologize for putting you on the spot. I like the fresh matchups, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't seem as though Team Merab wants to give Umar this opportunity.
Right. And I think there's probably a reason for that. I don't think Merab is scared of Umar by any means.
No.
But I do think Umar is a more difficult matchup than Petr Yan for sure.
All right. So there you have it. Ramadan 2025, February 28th or Saturday, March 1st, in and around is when it begins. So, and Umar is on the mend right now, but Petr Yan in a rematch with Sean O'Malley makes a lot of sense. He could certainly rematch Corey Sandhagen. If I'm Petr Yan, though, I'm waiting right now on the strength of this win over Davison Figueiredo, who, by the way, despite the defeat here, I still think will be heard from at 135 pounds. But congratulations to Petr Yan, right? And I just love him as a fighter, and it's just really cool to see his sons get older, right? I mean, it's crazy when I think back to like Callum Bisping, but you think about Petr Yan with these little boys, and now all of a sudden they're growing into, bigger boys and experiencing these moments with their dad. It's pretty cool because obviously they were very young when he was the champion. All right, I want to get into a few UFC 310 items if I could, and then time permitting some stuff on Conor McGregor. I don't think we need to lean too heavily into that, even though I know it sells, and I know people like to repurpose Conor McGregor content because, it does ratings. But Shavkat Rakhmonov, okay? He is the driving force behind UFC 310. We have a lot of nice things to say about Alexandre Pantoja here in about 5 minutes. I'm very happy that the Cannibal is getting this headlining opportunity to close the year, right? But money talks, Kenny. But Shavkat Rakhmonov earned a championship opportunity against Bilal Muhammad, not for an interim belt, for the undisputed welterweight title. Bilal suffers a life-threatening infection, and then Shavkat accepts a fight against his former training partner, Ian Machado Gary, with no interim belt on the line, but yet still a 5-round fight and still a co-main event. Now, I would imagine Shavkat Rakhmonov might have gotten a new contract or a great payday, right? But can we please acknowledge what this 18-0 athlete is doing when he had already been granted by the promotion a shot at the undisputed title.
Yeah, no question about it, man. And this is a very risky fight. I don't think Ian Gary is an easy out by any stretch of the imagination. And anytime you go out there for any UFC fight, you always take that risk of taking an L. And, the fact that he's not waiting around for that championship shot shows not only his willingness to want to go out there and compete, but his willingness to want to go out there and challenge himself against a guy that he knows very well. They have trained together. We all know the story about that. And, I think this is a risky fight. So I can't wait to break it down. But, man, it shows that Rakhmonov is very confident and the kid's a stud.
And Shavkat hasn't had the opportunity to fight nearly as often as he would like. Now, perhaps that's because he has been among the more avoided men in this division, right? But I think that's part of it too. And you're going to have to beat all of these guys, right? Yeah. And maybe he feels like fighting Ian Machado Gary right now is an opportune time or a more opportune time, right? Machado Gary was training for Joaquin Buckley, who has a lot of skills and wrestling ability, but is a power puncher, right? So we'll see how it plays out. Right now, Shavkat Rakhmonov is fighting a guy, Ian Machado Gary, who, yes, has repetitions against him in training, but Machado Gary is plus 300 right now on DraftKings Sportsbook. So that is for whatever it is worth, and we will get Kenny's prediction later on. But I did think that Shavkat Rakhmonov needed to be acknowledged off the top because, maybe the guy's making like $750,000 to show or some robust number. Maybe it's even more than that. But the dude had an undisputed championship opportunity, and I think the UFC, in wanting to stand by Bilal Muhammad, didn't put an interim belt on this fight. But this fight deserves an interim title. It does, right? Like, even though the calendar doesn't warrant it, and Bilal just won the belt 4.5 months ago, this fight, both of these guys undefeated, right? A combined 14-0 in the UFC, 33-0 combined. There should be an interim championship on the line. And I think in particular, Shavkat deserves credit for accepting the fight, despite the fact that that is not a reality for him. Without getting too much into Ian Machado Gary, I did find it interesting, and I privately messaged you as much, in terms of his leaving no stone unturned approach to his mixed martial arts career. This dude just finished up his training camp in the frigid climate of England, doing some like behind the scenes sparring. And I don't know, I just messaged you privately, like, say what you want about Ian Machado Gary in terms of his disposition, his relative arrogance, his appeal in terms of his in-octagon work, if you didn't like the Michael Venom Page win in terms of the style points. But Kenny, I know you've done the deep dive. Like, this dude is all in. Like, he is doing so many things right to try to become a world champion. And I guess I'm surprised that more of the fan base hasn't leaned into that.
Absolutely, man. And just everything I hear from him, I love it. I'm not as tall as him. I'm not as good looking as him. I'm not as athletic as him. I'm not as talented as him. But a lot of the things that he says reminds me of how I used to think about the game. And that means you go out there to learn, you stress test or pressure test what you're learning in sparring, in training, and then you get better, and then you rinse, wash, repeat. And it seems like a simple recipe, but a lot of people aren't really about that life. They're about kind of going hard, bro, and not about learning and evolving. And Ian Gary is about learning and evolving. Oh, and guess what? He also happens to have a fighter mentality as well. He has proven his toughness inside the octagon, in my opinion. And I think a lot of people are kind of writing him off here. And he's in a good spot as far as pressure-wise. He's going in against another undefeated fighter who has all finishes, and people are kind of forgetting about how good he is and what kind of potential he has shown inside the octagon.
On the UFC 310 Countdown show, Machado Gary says it was his then Kill Cliff teammate, Gilbert Dorino Burns, who, by the way, has cornered Machado Gary at times in his UFC career, that suggested that he go and get different looks at this stage of his career. And I thought it was interesting because when Ian Gary relocated to South Florida in 2021, when you align with a big camp like that, I do think that Gary was expectant of a longer stay at Kill Cliff FC. So what do you make of that? A 35 or so Gilbert Burns around the time he met Ian Gary, suggesting that, I don't know if he said Brazil, but go around the world and get the different looks, because Gary has certainly heeded that advice.
I think it was another welterweight being like, get the hell out of here. I need some more coach time. We have way too many good welterweights. Get out of here. No, I think that I think it was great advice from Gilbert Burns, a guy, again, who is in his division, who I think was very genuine in that advice. And when you're young, man, you have the time to develop as a fighter. I think for Gilbert Burns, who came from jiu-jitsu, who was competing in jiu-jitsu for a while, it's almost like you don't have as much time to get developed. You kind of have to bring your strengths to the game and just kind of get after it a little bit, perhaps not as much as someone who is young like Ian Gary. So I think it's great advice, especially a guy like Ian Gary, who is open-minded, who is willing to learn and see what's out there. He has that benefit over a lot of people because of his age, and he's been doing just that.
So oftentimes when I am emceeing a morning weigh-in, you will hear me say next fighter to the scale is the man around whom this fight card was built, in reference to the man who will walk last. In this case, it is the UFC flyweight champion Alexandre Pantoja at UFC 310. I'm not sure, though, that wording actually applies, because initially he was not the man around whom this fight card was built. That, of course, was Bilal Muhammad. But it's nice to see Pantoja get this shine. And I thought it was interesting that Kai Asakura, while acknowledging how good his opponent is, suggested that he's not really that special in any one area. And I think that maybe suggests that Pantoja has never really been a specialist, even if he came into the UFC as a BJJ guy and as a great back taker or whatever. So what are your thoughts on Pantoja maybe not being that one trick pony, but being as suffocating and relentless and really, in my mind, as well-rounded as any fighter in the sport?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that he's an extremely tough and aggressive guy. And I think that's kind of how he's built his game and his skills around that. Yeah. He's a predator. He wants to back you up. He wants to go forward by any means necessary. He does a good job of having strikes that are good enough to allow him to get into his grappling positions. And not to say he's not dangerous on the feet either. He's got some power. He's got some speed. But it's not the most technical striking in the world, but maybe it doesn't need to be. It allows him to bring his strengths, which I believe are on the ground. He's very good at scrambling, getting superior position, and pursuing that finish. And that's what I love about it.
Yeah, I mean, forward motion, perpetual aggression, and he has the cardiovascular base that allows him to execute in that fashion. He also has just that undeniable will and that willingness to go to dark places when he can barely breathe, to make sure that he's still being the offensive fighter. As good as he is as a striker, though, and it sort of dovetails with what you're saying, and I'm honestly okay if you steal your entire thunder right here and break it down for us off the top of the show and shortchange your preview or prediction on the back end, right? But correct me if I'm wrong. Pahumpini and everybody else, they're trying to make this a ground fight, no?
Mm-hmm. I would think so, John. And this is where he should take this fight. No question about it. Asakura is extremely dangerous. The way he goes about that, though, John, is going to be very important. I will talk about this later, but I believe he should look for more body lock connections as opposed to lowering his level and looking for double leg takedowns or single leg takedowns. Why? That knee of Asakura is a big time problem. It's lightning fast. He's looking for that thing right down the middle. Another great wrestler in Juan Archuleta found out just how fast and dangerous it is. So, for a guy who is as aggressive as Pantoja, he's going to have to mind his P's and Q's. What that does to his overall approach is going to be interesting.
Kai Asakura's story is absolutely fascinating, and he chronicled some of it briefly on UFC 310's Countdown Edition. But if that footage was real of his older brother trying to take his head off with every strike, that's some of the sickest shit I've ever seen.
I have chills thinking about it. It reminds me of me and my brothers throwing down. But yeah, dude, I mean, he literally is like, okay, let's go out in the street on the pavement. Yeah, no mats. We're going to throw down and try to knock each other out. And you could see Asakura, being the younger brother, actually not being intimidated, keeping his calm and throwing down, man. Being thrown into that environment, it's no wonder why he's such a cool-headed fighter and why he is so dangerous himself.
More coming up on Kai Asakura later in the program. Why am I rolling the R for a Japanese fighter? More coming up on Kai Asakura later on. But I can assure you, if Jason and I compete in any sort of martial arts setting against each other, and we're still trying to sell pay-per-views here, but I can't envision myself throwing haymakers like that and trying to like kill my twin brother with a strike, right? Because I mean, I'm not saying that I have this consequential power, but, you know, I'm not trying to like cause concussive damage that is going to like impact my brother's future. And that's exactly what Asakura's older brother was trying to do.
Absolutely. But you bring your venom verbally, you know, you're more that guy, but you don't want to hurt someone physically. This guy, I mean, his older brother was literally throwing a bomb, trying to take his head off. Now, let's say he lands one of those shots and it wasn't the hardest shot in the world. If you drop someone on pavement and your head hits the pavement, you can die. Like you can die. If you slip and hit your head wrong on pavement, it's not a good thing. And these guys were throwing down like it was the UFC championship.
My high school basketball career ended with me smashing my floor on the not hardwood, whatever the material was that we played on indoors. And I had taken a basketball right off the nose. So I was almost out by the time I hit the ground. So that was how my high school basketball career ended. But yeah, some people in the crowd thought that I was deceased. My mom kept speeding with the video camera. All right, we'll see how it all plays out. I have a few other things I'd like to get to in headlines before we bring on Ray Longo and continue this UFC 310 discussion. So sometimes as a talking head in the MMA space, I'll do an interview with MMA fighter, MMA junkie. And the next thing you know, I wake up and go to one of those websites and I see a headline about me saying something about maybe Jim Miller and his resume as UFC Hall of Famer. So I just wanted to ask you about this because I find it to be an interesting conversation point. So as I've said 12 times on a podium hosting the UFC Hall of Fame induction ceremony, the UFC's Hall of Fame is uniquely comprised of 4 separate wings. And one of those wings, of course, is to acknowledge fights. One of those wings is to acknowledge contributors. One of those wings is to acknowledge the pioneer era. And then you have the modern era wing of the Hall of Fame, in which both Donald Cowboy Cerrone and Daniel Cormier both reside. And therein lies part of the problem for me. Right now, there's no voting body. I think Dana White determines who is going to be in the UFC Hall of Fame. But Donald Cowboy Cerrone did compete for the undisputed lightweight championship. He has a bunch of longevity type UFC records. He is one of the winningest fighters in UFC history, but he never won the sport's ultimate prize. And herein lies a lot of the rub for me, because if you look at other Hall of Fames, some of them are more forgiving and opening of doors than others, right? But Daniel Cormier has often been quoted in this Jim Miller conversation. And what DC and I are both suggesting is that, yes, Jim Miller in our minds is a Hall of Famer. Nobody has won more UFC fights than Jim Miller. But to put him in the same wing with Daniel Cormier and Khabib Nurmagomedov diminishes the Hall of Fame accomplishment for the Mount Rushmore types, the greatest fighters of all time, like John Jones, George St. Pierre, and Demetrius Johnson. Kenny Florian, what say you?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's absolutely fair. I don't think they should be treated equally. And perhaps Donald Cerrone shouldn't be in there either, right? I mean, maybe not for that. And I think that the Hall of Fame should be reserved for people with great accomplishments in this sport at the highest level, not just some pretty cool stats.
Right.
And again, it does not mean it's not impressive. If you fight in the UFC one damn time, that is impressive as a fighter. Very few people have that honor of being able to compete against the best fighters in the world. However, you know, there's levels to it, right? And so
I'm just saying, like when Chael Sonnen was inducted into the Hall of Fame for his fight with Anderson Silva, you know, I did text Chael and I said, this is a conduit to get individuals into the Hall of Fame, right? Yes, that fight was absolutely epic on its own merit. It deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, but it is also about the people who are taking part in those fights. But like for Robbie Lawler to be in the Hall of Fame for his Rory McDonald fight, he was the undisputed UFC welterweight champion, right? So does Robbie Lawler now need to be inducted twice like Shogun Rua, right? To further differentiate him from a guy like Chael Sonnen or Clay Guida? Because I'm telling you right now, like, if I'm Clay Guida, I'm not sure I say to people, hey, what's up, guys? It's UFC Hall of Famer Clay Guida. I don't know how comfortable I feel saying that. Hey, I am the Korean Superboy, UFC Hall of Famer Doo Ho Choi. Like, I don't know that Cub Swanson introduces himself as such. So I do think at some point we can tweak our Hall of Fame further to really acknowledge in some sort of platinum way a guy like Khabib Nurmagomedov and Demetrius Johnson and George St. Pierre for what they have done as the greatest fighters of all time. You know, not just a Hall of Famer like Ray Longo going into the contributors wing. Speaking of which, we do have the future UFC Hall of Famer, star of the Ray Longo Minute, Raymond Peter Longo, live on a Monday.
Oh, man.
Where are you?
Oh, I don't know. I'm in a mess right now.
Well, you sound great.
I'm packing. I'm getting ready to roll out of here. We got big fights coming up, John.
It's great to see you, buddy. How was your Thanksgiving?
Very good. How about yours?
Kenny and I stuffed our fat faces. We put on a lot of weight. What was the best thing you ate on Thursday?
I kept it pretty mild. Just turkey. That's it.
Look at you.
That's the best.
Protein,
I mean,
huh?
all right. So was the turkey moist? Was it dry?
No, it was good. Everything was good.
Ray, I'm gonna get to Chris Weidman, okay? So
you want
Kenny,
to talk
what was the
about
best thing? Kenny, what was the best thing you ate on Thursday? Was it that French toast in the morning that you were talking about off the top of the show, or no?
Yeah, it was pretty damn good. Turkey's fine. It was good. Actually, my wife did a great job. She did a little sous vide, sous vide it, and then she cooked it after, which was really nice. It was moist. It was a good turkey. Yeah. I'm not a huge fan of Thanksgiving meals. But it was good. It was solid. I wasn't disappointed.
I am in the minority. I actually love that Thanksgiving meal. I love that turkey meat. Our producer, Cody, is saying I'm making him cringe because I use the adjective moist. But, I mean, Ray, were there any, accoutrements or side dishes that were good? I had some turkey. It was good. I kept it. Are you just, straight protein, fucking keto? I'm sorry to bother you with the question.
Breaking news, Ray Longo's Thanksgiving was boring.
Hold on. Let me think of my what the fuck is that?
He's a wordsmith, Ray. Come on.
So my mother makes a squash souffle that's outstanding, and there's Longo out of the fucking shot. So, I had turkey. It was good. I mean, is he offended by the question? Am I the asshole?
How is Ray boring right before a fight? I don't understand.
Well,
Ray, what's happening?
The stuffing was good. How's that?
Okay, there you go.
That was great. That was great.
Sausage with fennel. The stuffing was very good. Yeah, I like that.
So we were just talking a little bit about Jim Miller and the UFC Hall of Fame, and certainly the Hall of Fame is going to come calling, right? But what if the UFC Hall of Fame comes calling for Jim Miller before it comes calling for Rafael dos Anjos, for example, right? RDA won the ultimate fucking prize, right? Now, Jim Miller has sustained through Lyme disease and beaten so many different fighters from at least 2 different eras, right? But I don't know. If we're going to get predictive, I wouldn't be surprised if the Hall of Fame comes calling for Jim Miller before RDA. And to me, Ray, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, that's a tough one, man. Because what Jim Miller has accomplished is pretty cool, man. I mean, what's he got? UFC 100, 200, 300, plus what you said, what he had to overcome, the amount of time in the octagon. They have to have then they'll have to come up with another category to make you feel better, because I think he's got. I heard what you were saying before this while I was waiting. And I do agree with you. It's a harsh conversation to have, because I think Jim Miller's incredible for what he's done now. And, again, if you're an older guy, you're looking at this guy going, how the hell is he even doing that? I mean, that's a lot of fights, man. So I don't know. Something has to be said about it. Do you want to put him in with Khabib? I get that. No, I wouldn't want to do that. But he's got his own special accomplishments. And if they fit some sort of criteria for the Hall of Fame,
I think we need a period. Yeah, I think we need a 5th wing, a legacy type wing. I mean, KenFlo, your friend Damian Maia has maybe 4 fewer wins than Jim Miller, right? 22 UFC wins, top 5 all time, challenge for the belt. I mean, Damian Maia's not going to sniff the UFC Hall of Fame, but there was a time when he had probably 7 more wins than Jim Miller. I have a lot of passion for this, obviously, as somebody who is inexorably linked to this Hall of Fame induction ceremony. But DC gets roundly criticized for suggesting that Jim Miller's not a Hall of Famer, and it's not even what he's saying. We just have to figure out a wing.
Right. Well, what we don't want to become is kind of like childhood sports where everyone gets a trophy, right? I mean,
Definitely
this is professional sports. This is the UFC Hall of Fame. It should be special. It should be unique. And again, this does not take away from what Jim Miller has accomplished or anything like that. And it's not even for me, it's not even about Jim Miller necessarily. It's about what is the criteria that should be established for people to be in the UFC Hall of Fame, period. Let's stick to it and put those guys that are deserving of that award in there.
You know, and I'll tell you, John, if you've been to the gym, I have a wall of champions and fighters in the UFC. That's the criteria. You get in the UFC, your picture goes on the wall, but there's people in Bellator, there's kickboxing champs in the gym, there's this type of champ. And unfortunately, they don't get to go up on that wall. I mean, that criteria is set, and we held to it. You know what I mean? So it's the same thing. I mean, I'm not going to compare like somebody who won a local kickboxing title to somebody that, won a UFC titles. But it's definitely, when you go in that gym, what the gym's all about. And that's the way
I love how cutthroat you are about that wall. And I love that you, as the godfather and the owner of the facility, are laying out the criteria for everybody. So if Dakota Ditcheva is your striker and she wins a PFL World Championship like that, she got to go to the fucking UFC to get on the wall. Wow.
Hey, wait, first off, shout out to Dakota. I don't know her, but I do know her mom. Her mom used to fight for us, and I actually cornered her mother. Lisa Horwath was a badass. 100% was a badass. Very, very talented, good kickboxer. Back in the day, she fought at the Taj Mahal for us a bunch of times. And then I think me and my partner, Lou Neglia, I cornered her in a boxing match, I think, against an undefeated girl. I'm going to say her name was Alicia Ashley, but I'm not sure. But her mother was a sweetheart and an absolute badass. So and she looks exactly like her daughter. If you see him when I saw her the fight, I saw her get in the ring. It brought back old memories. So shout out to Lisa.
She's much shorter, but they look a lot alike. Yeah.
Yeah. She was probably a 120 pounder back then, but she could fight 100%. And the kid looks absolutely phenomenal. She really does. So shout out to them. They got something good going on over there. So that was a surprise to me to even see. I just put it together over the weekend.
Wow.
Brought her up. Yeah.
No, I'm glad that we landed on that connective tissue somehow, some way, even if I was sort of doing it in a playful way, trying to see if she could get on the goddamn wall for a huge win like that. But you know what we got to do? We got to get Dakota and her mom on the podcast together.
Yeah. Without a doubt.
So we can reminisce a little bit. That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations to Dakota.
Yeah.
So, but you win real quick, Ray. You win a Bellator or PFL world title. Like Corey Anderson can't get on that fucking wall with a Bellator title. You got to win the UFC belt, right?
Not happening.
Wow. So what do Kenny and I have to do? Can Kenny and I do 1,000 shows with you? Can we get up there or no?
No, Kenny. No, I can't do that. No.
Right.
I was gonna say Kenny was in the UFC, but I didn't train him, so he's not going up there either.
Well, maybe there's a separate place. I know you got Joe Rogan on the wall in there, so maybe there's a separate place where there's a picture of Joe Rogan in there on the wall, but maybe it's somebody else I'm thinking about. I think there's there are a lot of old school photos in there. I mean, I'm just looking for me and KenFlo.
Talking about the wall of UFC fights. I have pictures with people. No. I love that picture with Joe. It's when me and Matt first met.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that's got to be 2000 maybe. I don't even know. UFC.
Yeah, no, Kenny and I are just asking to see if maybe there's a possibility that we could get our photo on the wall.
Not
okay. All right. That's fine. So
John, you can rest assured that no matter what you do for the rest of your life, no matter how big it is, how great an accomplishment it is, if you don't get your fucking ass in that UFC octagon, you ain't going up on that fucking wall. That's a fact.
Okay, that's good.
And my word is my bond. That's not changing.
All right. Okay. Well, Rogan didn't fight in the UFC, and he's on the fucking wall.
He's not on the wall. He's in a picture.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I just asked for. Me and KenFlo in a goddamn picture on the wall. Next to Rogan.
A picture on the.
We
On that
pay
other
you. I mean,
wall,
what we don't.
not the wall, on a
on the other wall. Oh, you guys are going up there for sure.
All right, there we go.
I got to get you guys up there.
You can put my face on the welcome mat if you want. You know.
Yeah.
You're going to get 2 wins this weekend, right? One of your guys is
Oh.
favored now. They were both underdogs 24 hours ago. Weidman's the favorite now.
Wow. And he
We got
started
a
out
lot
as
to
big
get
underdog.
into, Ray. Lot to get into. All right.
Let's go.
My final Thanksgiving question
Yeah.
for you guys, and then we'll really dive in. Just give me 30 seconds. I know half the
Apple pie.
listenership-
Oh, sorry about that. A little habit
So,
I picked up watching the
You
quiz
like
shows,
dark
Kenny.
meat or white meat, Kenny?
Oh.
I'm more of a dark meat guy.
Ray?
Oh, I love that dark meat.
Yeah. So it is interesting. If not for a health reason, like why would you prefer white meat to dark meat? I just don't know.
Right.
Anyway,
I
Ray,
think that dark meat screams a little louder, but I'm not really sure. For me, it was anyway, Kenny. No?
and there it is.
There
No,
it is.
yes,
No?
just digesting the
That's it.
comedy. That's
Wait, what are we
high level.
talking about here?
What are you
Dark meat,
talking
white
about? I'm
meat?
talking about turkey.
Oh, I'm talking about women. What's the matter with you? Are
Wow.
you crazy?
I didn't
Wow,
know.
this
I
guy-
thought you were I thought you were
I'm all about the
I thought
dark
you were
meat.
monogamous. I didn't know. I was asking you about your
Oh.
Thanksgiving, which was a few days ago, and you're talking about
I give a lot of thanks to my giving.
all right. We are
Wow.
going to now transition, however awkwardly, to UFC 310, Pantoja versus Asakura. All right, so
Oof.
I guess we'll start with Aljamain Sterling and Movsar Evloev. And one thing we talked about, Ray, off the top of the show, and I guess this is neither here nor there, but this is a prelim fight in some part because maybe historically Movsar Evloev hasn't been as violent as Dakota Ditcheva. But this is crazy that a title eliminator type fight is happening on the prelim portion. Nonetheless, what do you guys need to do to take that O from the 18-0 Movsar Evloev this weekend?
Look, for me, I think Aljo, with his skill set, could out hustle him. I think he could out hustle him on the feet. By what I'm looking at, he's pretty predictable with what he does. Now, if Aljo can navigate around that, he's definitely got the tools. He's definitely got more tools standing up that he in his toolbox than he can use than the other guy could use. So, in the wrestling exchanges, man, you get into a scramble, Aljo latches onto something because he's got wrestling and jiu-jitsu, and I think that makes him scary in the scrambles because he gets a body triangle, he gets your neck, he's going to finish the fight.
Ray, how do you see this fight going? Is this a question of two wrestlers canceling each other out with the takedowns, and it comes down to who the better striker is, or are we going to see a grappling match between these two?
Kenny, I'm not really sure, but I think it's going to play out a lot on the feet. I do believe that. I think the wrestling will cancel each other out, and not even cancel each other out. I think Mozart's smart enough to know he's got to be careful even taking Aljo down because, Aljo does have a really good submission game. So that could freeze him up a little bit for the feet. And I think Aljo, with his footwork and his variety of strikes and his awkwardness with his hands and feet, I think could present a lot of problems to him. I think even Arnold Allen was doing pretty good in that fight.
Yeah.
I don't think that fight was a blowout by no means. Mozart had a couple of moments, but for the most part, that fight was pretty even, I thought.
And were you surprised, Ray, when they said that this fight was going to be a prelim?
100%.
Yeah.
What do you do about that? 100%. I mean,
Right.
if this fight is a title eliminator, should that be on the prelims? I mean, I think that's a sign of what the UFC thinks about both of these guys.
Based on what I heard, it seemed like Aljo's motivated by this, though. It seems like this has kind of fired him up to kind of go out there and put on a good performance. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that, but he's not going to come outside himself because of that. But, everybody needs a little motivation no matter where you get it from. And if that's what his source of motivation is going to be, use it. Bring it into the octagon and use it. Yeah, 100%.
So Aljo's number 9 in the world. Movsar Evloev is undefeated and is in the top 5. Also at featherweight, you have Bryce Mitchell, number 13 in the world, taking on Crone Gracie, who, of course, is unranked, and they're on the main card. Now, certainly historically, both of those guys have been involved in some crazy fights. Thug Nasty has been wildly entertaining, but gosh, I mean, when I think about Aljo's penchant for quick finishes, the way he put Corey Sandhagen away, the championship run, and Movsar's been in some exciting grappling wars as well. It does seem a little bit backwards, right, that those guys would not be on pay-per-view, but it stands to reason that far more people are going to see their fight on ESPN2 than maybe would have seen it on pay-per-view, Ray, with a flyweight champion headlining. So I don't know promotionally what goes into that decision, right? But I do think that they want to make the pay-per-view as exciting as possible. And I think they worry maybe that Evloev and Sterling is going to be a grappler's delight.
Yeah, I'll tell you, a lot of good stuff there, because you're right, man. I mean, the ESPN2 audience is going to be, it's got to be triple what that pay-per-view is going to be.
Oh, coming off of
right?
college football Saturday? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good point. So I mean,
Yeah.
maybe they want to help those guys, because I think more eyeballs will definitely be on the prelims than will be in, and people get it's more of a, like in I'm on pay-per-view, it's more of a talking point, I think. But really, when you break it down like that, and I forgot about that, John, you're 100% right. You're better off on the prelims if you want to get eyeballs on you. So who knows? Listen, Bryce Mitchell, if the other guy's name wasn't Gracie, they're not on the main card either. They're going to try to, maneuver. They know what they're doing. That's why they're doing great. It's not like they just pull this shit out of their ass. They
Of
think
course.
about it, and everything has a reason. And like, again, the fact that guy's name is Gracie, of course, why not? They're going to look at what they could market. They could market that, even though Kron didn't have a good showing last time. I don't know. Well, who knows what makes them tick? But that's a good point. The pay-per-view numbers, I can't see for that fight card. I can't see that card doing big numbers right now.
Ray, what was the last time, or when was the last time you placed a bet on anything? It can be New York State Lottery. It can be betting on a fight. Do you recall the last time you gambled anything?
Yeah, I can recall it.
Can you share that with our audience, or is that a secret?
No, that's a secret.
All right. Was it within the last few months?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know the betting line on either of your guys this weekend?
No, I do not.
So Aljamain Sterling's the underdog. I'd imagine you were expectant that he would be. Yes?
I'll go with that. Yeah. I would think Weidman, I thought, would have been a favorite more than Aljo would have been a favorite.
Right. So Aljamain Sterling is plus 205 right now on DraftKings Sportsbook. A pretty big underdog.
Wow. That's big, man.
That's a big number next to Aljo's name. You guys got your work cut out for you, at least on paper.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. No, I love both guys.
Yeah. No. That's a
big number, is it not?
Bigger than I thought. Yeah. What's Weidman?
So when I sent out the lines to KenFlo a few days ago, Weidman was a slight underdog. Now he is a slight favorite, minus 118. You throw those two guys together, though, in a two-leg parlay, and it comes in, you fucking change your life, Raymond.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I might do that. I like that.
All right, I have a few other items if I could. Shavkat Rakhmonov and Ian Machado Gary are fighting in the co-main event. It's 5 rounds. There is not an interim welterweight championship belt on the line. I know you're happy with that scenario. But what do you make of this fight, in particular when it comes to the familiarity between these two athletes, having trained together several times prior?
Man, I wasn't there, but I'm hearing that Gary used to always get submitted by Rakhmonov through the grapevine. So it doesn't always work like that, because there were times that guys beat up Tyson in the gym, right? I think they just had something on that, and Tyson, annihilated the guy when they actually fought. So sparring is different from fighting. But it does, I'd have to be there, because there's some sparring, is going one way, and there's not much that could happen. But
right.
I think it makes for an interesting fight. I'm dying to see the fight. I think it's a great fight. I'm glad that they have familiarity with each other. I still think it's going to be a good fight. I don't think they're going to, whatever, hold back in any way or any of that. And I think the fact that Ian Gary, he hooked up with Damian Maia, right?
Yeah, several years
Yeah,
ago. I don't know if they're
I-
still aligned on the day-to-day right now, but yes, I think he was in his corner in his last fight.
Yeah, so I think that's an indication that he's putting a priority on the jiu-jitsu and his sub defense, I'm sure, based on what happened in the gym. So hats off to Gary. If he makes those adjustments, that'd be a great fight.
KenFlo, what were you saying about Maia? Were you saying something?
Yeah, no, I was just agreeing with that Maia was in his corner for the last one. So he's been working for a little while. And
so that means to Kenny, he had a concern about something with the jiu-jitsu, right? He reached out and got one of the top guys in the world who's ever done it in MMA, who was a great,
training with Charles Oliveira as well.
Yeah.
Right.
So, that's what happens with those gyms when you have two guys in there. Then once they fight, somebody's got to actually leave the gym, which I just rather not deal with any of that shit, but when you have a big gym like that, it happens.
At your gym, the manager is Steve Lee, and it seems like you guys are churning out more Instagram content these days, right? They stick a phone or a camera in your face and they say, "Hey, Ray, who do you think's going to win?" And then you go, I don't know. And then you don't even give them a prediction. So should I ask you, like, forced to make it? It sounds like you like Shavkat by submission, no?
I think that's not a bad bet, but I
don't need a fence to sit on.
I need a fence to sit on, like I always need, a big fence.
Yeah.
I like sitting on a big fence, John.
Yeah.
But no, it's going to be a great fight. I don't know which way, but you're right, though. When they do those predictions with me, I don't even want to do them. I just, whatever, because when you know everybody, it kind of sucks. That's why I give you a lot of credit for, pissing on Jim Miller this morning. That was nice.
Oh, come on, man. The reason why
I'm joking around. I'm joking.
No, that's good. That's good. But the reason why I extended that conversation is because I think anyone who reads that article and doesn't listen to this podcast is going to maybe feel some kind of way. And I do believe Jim Miller is a Hall of Famer. I just think we need a wing for the Cerrone and Miller types. And even a case like Rafael dos Anjos. We've talked about Jessica Andrade, some of these fighters who have realized the ultimate prize, but maybe aren't your prototypical first ballot Hall of Famers. All right.
One thing with that too is, like, when you've been around, like as long as I've been around and watched Jim Miller from the beginning, like every time I see him, I'm kind of like, holy crap, this guy's still going. I remember this guy like 30 years ago. That's where it gets crazy. If you're just coming in and you're a follower in the last 5 years, maybe it isn't that big of a deal. But when you've watched a guy go through all the shit that he's been through, and he's always been consistent, he's always showing up. Like, I go back to being in the locker room with people. I can't even remember how long ago it was. I just think that's an accomplishment. It's not like he's like 1 in 40. He's winning fights too. So that's hats off to him.
Of course,
something has to be done. I mean, I think I don't think I don't think anybody's breaking what he's doing with the number of fights he's had. And
the wins, right? I mean, he has more UFC wins than anybody. But
that's tough.
I don't know, man. It's like, my best friend Kenny Florian beat Clay Guida to a bloody pulpit, and Clay Guida is in the Hall of Fame and still fighting this weekend. Kenny fought for the belt 3 times.
Guida's amazing too, man. He's got some.
What are you laughing at? I got to see Clay and his dad in 2 days. So funny.
Salt of the earth people.
The most amazing family in MMA.
Really just great people.
So I can't help it. My best friend showed up in his fucking bracket. Hey, Kenny, put your head down a second, huh? That you and Guida, right? Immortalized behind you, right in your office. Every day you walk in and look at that. Every day. Every day, Kenny thinks of beating up Clay Guida, right? Every day you fucking walk into that office, right? Yep.
Oh, Jesus, Kenny. Clay, me and Kenny only do the show. We don't really agree with him on a lot of things. Oh, God. Can I have a peaceful vacation when I
hang on? Let's see. What is the appearance number for Clay Guida? Is it UFC appearance number 37 or something? Are we even picking the fight?
Dude, how about him, man? Him and Miller, just freaking studs, dude.
Unbelievable.
Great. Still with the energy, and they can still compete. I don't know. It's wild. Pretty impressive.
It's amazing.
To me.
You might as well chuck him in the fucking Hall of Fame, right? Just kidding. No, I love Clay, and I'm excited to see how he competes against Chase Hooper, who's got some momentum. It's all coming up this weekend. UFC 310 live on pay-per-view. So, Longo, after you finish wiping your nose, breaking a sweat today, what do we got going on? When are we traveling to the fight capital of the world?
We'll be there Wednesday.
Wednesday.
When are you getting there?
What time do you land? We might see each other there at McCarran Airport.
I don't know. In the afternoon.
Cody, is that accurate? Clay Guida 18-18 in the UFC across his 36 appearances. Wow.
Yeah. What's Miller's record?
I don't have that in front of me, but no, I think he's like 26-15 or something in the UFC.
Jeez,
you know,
it's a lot of fights.
It's insane. It really
That's
is
a lot. I'd put that guy in the Hall of Fame immediately.
All right, Ray, last thing before we let you go. Do you believe Conor McGregor will fight in 2025?
No.
Yeah.
He looks, I mean, I don't know. Why didn't he fight in 2024? I thought that was going to happen.
Yeah,
his trajectory isn't looking too good right now. I think he's got to square away his own house stuff, and he can move on. But it looks like he's just not ready to do anything. I don't know what leads us to believe he's coming back in 2025.
Well, and at this point, and I'm sure a lot of the fan base doesn't necessarily care as much about the matchup, or even if he does compete, right? A lot of the fan base has never even seen the guy compete, right? I mean, he broke his leg a couple months after Chris Weidman did. Weidman's already fought several guys and is fighting again this weekend, right? So
yeah, that's crazy. Well, that's Weidman, man. Weidman wants it. He wants to be in there.
Well, right.
He still enjoys it. Like, again, if you listen to John, if you want to fight, you're fighting. If he wanted to fight, that's a no-brainer. He fights whenever the hell he wants to fight. So obviously he doesn't want to fight, and he's enjoying whatever he's doing, which looks like partying and, you know.
Yeah, I think certainly in totality, he doesn't want to fight. Part of him certainly wants to fight. I guess my fear now, and that's probably a bad way to put it, but is that it's just going to be some inconsequential fight, right? Like, at least if he was fighting a Michael Chandler or a Dan Hooker or a Charles Oliveira, it's a consequential lightweight fight. But to have him fight Nate Diaz for a third time at 170 pounds and have it headline a pay-per-view, as far as championships, it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. No, look, John, I agree with you too. Plus, I mean, the years just keep going by, man. You can't, you get to a point in your life where it's not like you're 24 and you miss a year and you're 25. You're 36 and you miss a year or 2 years and you're 37, 38, whatever. I think it's a huge difference. And, you know, everything changes in your life, how old your kids are, what you're doing, you know what I mean? So I just don't see, like you're right. A lot of people don't probably, well, they know who he is because he did a great job branding himself. But the longer you're out of the spotlight, and that's why I think he stays in the spotlight, you know, the people forget you. This sport, you know, I think it's like every 5 years you know, you get new people coming in. Like, I know kids that are watching this sport now that they weren't watching it 7 years ago. You know what I mean? And they don't know most of the people that everybody else knows because they're just focused on what they've been seeing the last couple of years. So
that's why I have to gratuitously remind everybody the extent to which KenFlo was a nasty prick in his prime, because a lot of them didn't see him fight. KenFlo, any thoughts on go ahead. Sorry.
No, but John, that's our job, because Kenny was a great fighter. And, you know, people probably, you know, don't know who he is, which is crazy, you know. And that's why I think it's important to keep going. He accomplished a lot. Like what he's done, you really should be in the Hall of Fame.
And he should be on your wall somewhere. But anyway.
Well, thank you, guys.
I know you're going on the wall, but I'm saying, Kenny, but you did fight in like 4 different weight classes too, no?
I did.
I mean,
he won in them all. He didn't just fight in them all.
Yeah, who's done that? Who's done that?
It was a different time back then, Ray. It was a different time.
You know what? I'll tell you, you know.
But, you know, listen, in regards to Conor, I think that I don't see it happening in the immediate future anyway, right? I mean, that's pretty obvious. It would be pretty much a PR disaster. And any interviews, conferences, you know, those questions are going to come up. So I think you have to avoid that at all costs. I don't think the UFC wants that. Conor McGregor certainly doesn't want that. And I think that if we do see it happen, it would probably be late 2025, and it would be something as John alluded to, maybe not as important as a title shot or something like that. So I don't think we'll see Conor McGregor again. I think that he probably likes the idea, maybe even loves the idea of getting back out there and competing again. I do think he still has that martial arts bone in his body. But just with everything going on, he has all the money in the world. There's no need to compete. I think that it may do more harm than good. So, it's unfortunate the way it all went down. But and of course, what we hear in the media isn't always what actually transpired. There's a lot to the case. I haven't followed too closely. I'm not going to pretend like I knew everything. But one thing's for sure, we don't know everything.
Right. Yeah. And the other thing is, I mean, based on what we hear, and look, I find the guy amusing, and what he's done with, like, again, branding his name and making money is absolutely phenomenal. I think everybody witnessed that meteoric rise. But like, based on what I'm hearing, if he doesn't get himself into like one of those 12-step programs, he's not going anywhere. I mean, he's right now, it seems like he's really battling addiction, and that's not going to go away unless he gets really proactive with it. And proactive really means getting his ass into like meetings every fucking day, like not even once a month or once a week. It's got to be, he seems like he's at that level now where he needs an intervention with people, and they got to really, if people around him really want to help him, I think that's the way to go based on what I'm hearing. But like, again, we don't really know anything, but it looks like the spiral is just one right after the other. So unfortunate.
Yeah. Well, on that note, as much as we have traded barbs today, we know there's a lot of love on both sides. Can't wait to see you in Vegas here in a couple days, buddy. Huge weekend for Team
Ray. Good luck,
Longo.
And I
huge weekend, Ray. We get 1 win, 2 wins, 0 wins. What do we think?
2-0 for sure. But furthermore, I hope we meet at Big Ron's castle again. No,
we will see what happens.
Big Ron in a while.
Yeah, I know Big Ron's been busy, and I got a pretty crazy week myself. So not a ton of recreational time. Like, I can already tell you right now, there's no dinner happening. We got the World MMA Awards coming up on Thursday night. We have a celebration of life for Derek Thompson on Thursday as well. And we got 14 fights. I got 28 athletes that I got to learn. So, but I'll text you when I get there, and hopefully you'll do the same, and we'll talk to you real soon.
Let's do it. All right, guys. Great time. I'll talk to you in a couple of days.
All right, my man. Safe travels.
Take it easy, guys.
Ray, good luck,
man. UFC 310. Raymond Petr Longo, Ray Longo Minute every week here on the Anik and Florian podcast. One more pay-per-view to go, and what a 2024 it has been in mixed martial arts. We're ending the year with a bang, though. UFC 310 live this weekend from Las Vegas, and you can jump in on all the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of UFC. Card is loaded, so much so that our guys are breaking down 11 fights today. Even if you are not, though, an expert on their level, it's wicked easy for first-timers to get started. Try betting on something simple, like a straight wager on a fighter just to win. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app, not now, but right now. Select your fighter and place your first bet. It is that simple. A lot of big favorites this weekend in the headlining fights. Alexandre Pantoja, Shavkat Rakhmonov. Perhaps you like one of the underdogs, Kaya Sakura, Ian Machado, Gary, plus 300 right now on DraftKings Sportsbook. Regardless, though, of your inclination, if you are new to DraftKings, we have further good news. New customers bet just $5, and you will get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use code AFPOD. That's code AFPOD for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins when you bet just $5 only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. 21 plus, age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bet must win to receive reward. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/MMA. All right, time now for the main event challenge. UFC 310, Pantoja versus Asakura, as we go 3 wide and welcome in big gun Brian Petrie. What's the green hammer kit?
Oh, sorry, boys. That's just my money hammer. You upped our balances this week, and I'm trying to crush Kenny in 2024 here, babe. So how to bring up the old money hammer. What's up, boys?
Dang.
Great to see your shining face.
Yeah.
Hope you had a good Thanksgiving. Great to see the money hammer. And here's the deal. Yeah. And when we get to place your bets, I'm giving these guys $5,000 to spend on the final pay-per-view of the year. This is going to be a new rule. You're getting $5,000 for the first pay-per-view of the year, for International Fight Week, and for the last pay-per-view of the year. And part of the reason I'm doing it in December is because none of these guys ever pay off their punishments anyway, and because things have tightened up, and I want to see it go down to the final week.
Good.
So we're going to rifle through some of these prelim picks, fellas. We'll spend more time on the main card, but as you guys know, just given this UFC 310 lineup, I had a hard time eliminating fights. So we're going to start with the early prelims, Bri.
Yeah.
A welterweight fight, 39-year-old Max Griffin. Doesn't that make you feel a little bit older, BP, right?
Yeah.
Max Griffin's 39. He's the minus 130 betting favorite here against 37-year-old Michael Chiesa, who comes back plus 110. So Griffin, 500 fighter in the UFC, Bri, 8-8 after a split decision win over Jeremiah Wells earlier this year. That 2022 split decision loss to Neil Magny really kind of killed his hopes of title contention. Because right now, instead of having won 6 of 7 on paper with the only loss in there to Michael Morales, he now on paper has lost 2 of 4. How do you think he fares this weekend as the slight favorite against Michael Chiesa?
Yeah, interesting fight here. I lean Chiesa right off the bat because of the dog money, and I've always said Chiesa I thought was like 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I feel like he reignited his fire after that win over Tony Ferguson. Now, I know Tony Ferguson is what he is, but Chiesa looked really good in that. And you look at Max Griffin's record, and besides Colby Covington, he hasn't really fought anyone in that extensive UFC record that really truly chain wrestles and wants to take you down nonstop. And that's what Chiesa does. He's a unique guy for a unique wrestler, whereas as he's tall and lanky as opposed to short and stocky. Yeah, but he does have some really good trips and really good body lock takedowns as well. Max Griffin hanging a 68% takedown defense. Worries me a little bit if you're going Chiesa, because I do think he pieces Chiesa up on the feet. I think Max Griffin has kind of awkward, weird striking that can catch people off guard, and Chiesa is not really known for his hands. But if it gets to the ground, I like Michael Chiesa here. You're giving me dog money. Let's go.
Nice job on the handicap there, Brian Petrie. Last 5 of Max Griffin's fights have gone the distance, but definitely an awkward striker and a good striker and a long striker. Michael Chiesa, KenFlo, we obviously know him well. He won the Ultimate Fighter Live all the way back in 2012. Snapped a 3-fight skid by taking care of business as a big favorite against Tony Ferguson back in August. And yeah, I guess not a lot of comps like this on the resume of Max Griffin. Your thoughts on Chiesa v. Griffin on the prelim portion Saturday night?
Yeah, not a whole lot to add. Brian did a great breakdown. I agree with everything there. The only thing I would add would be that Chiesa actually looked way better on the feet. Now, people are going to say, well, he faced Tony Ferguson, yada, yada. Okay, well, that might be the case, but from a technical perspective, he just looked better. His footwork looked better. He's coming back with better fundamentals. His jab looked much sharper. So I think that's going to help him to establish the proper range against Griffin and also help set up those takedowns that BP is talking about. So I like Chiesa here in the underdog spot as well.
All right, next bout to be contested at a catch weight of 195 pounds. Chris Weidman, minus 118. Bri taking on your boy Eryk Anders, who's minus 102. This fight, of course, was to go down to Madison Square Garden 3 weeks ago. They both had weighed in before Anders fell ill on fight day. So now after Thanksgiving, they get rebooked here at a catch weight. And given some of the early fight week line movement, Bri, Weidman is now the betting favorite. Your thoughts on that?
I love that shot down the line there, John.
Right?
Your roadcaster, bro. Listen, I picked Weidman. I was the asshole. I went against Ray's guy last time. Not doing that again. I have flipped hard. I did. It wasn't just because I don't want to pick against Ray's guy. I switched because of the way I saw him at the weigh-ins, and Anders pulled out. He's sick. Maybe that didn't shake out of the system. He's the bigger guy, cutting weight again. I know it's at 195, but he's still got to cut weight. This is a guy that fought a lot at 205. And Weidman just seemed really bummed out. He seemed ready for that opportunity. He wanted to fight, and he's getting this fight. I'm happy for him. Surprised about the number. I wish Weidman was plus money because I am rocking with them, but give me Chris Weidman.
If this was a circumstance for me as a professional athlete, right, the fight going away and then the Thanksgiving holiday, like I'm eating fucking nothing on Thanksgiving. Like I'm just so pissed and training like 3 a days, right? But you don't know how this circumstance is going to affect things, KenFlo. Anders making his 18th UFC appearance. I know he would like to get to 20. He will be 38 in April, first things first here. And Weidman, 40 years of age, as he arrives at his 20th UFC start. KenFlo, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'll say this. I would always spend my Thanksgiving as a fighter in Canada. I would always get the heck out of Massachusetts. I don't want any part of that huge Thanksgiving dinner. Okay, so I like Chris Weidman here. You know, no change for me from what I saw the first time around. Unfortunate, he's not going to be able to fight in front of his home crowd of New York, but I still like Chris here. I think Eryk is a very good fighter. But I think Chris is going to be able to at least utilize his striking, get in, get out, and maybe hit some takedowns to seal some rounds. I think it's going to be close, but I like Chris here.
And in terms of intel, sort of a unique situation for me to be able to share fighter meeting intel with this audience, because we just had a fighter meeting with Chris Weidman a couple of weeks ago. And I do take him at his word when he said this. His leg is in an entirely different place in terms of strength and health and push-off ability and confidence than that previously broken limb was going into the Bruno Silva and Brad Tavares fight. So whatever that is worth, I don't know, but that leg was not in a good place for those two fights, and I think it's in a better place now. We shall see. All right, late prelims, fellas. Bri, we will get to you on this fight at welterweight. Brian Battle, minus 230, taking on Randy Brown, plus 190. So money seemingly continuing to pour in on Brian Battle. Minus 230 right now on DraftKings Sportsbook BP, despite being on the wrong end of the UFC experience equation here. Battle is legit, man. What do you think about him here in the biggest career spot to date against the credentialed rude boy Randy Brown?
Yeah, I'm quickly becoming a Brian Battle fan. Rude boy. This guy's, he's quick on the feet. He's got good footwork, really good range. He used to take a lot of people down. Now he's not doing that so much. He's just kind of, staying on the feet and looking really good. There's going to be some talking between these boys in the cage. They both like to talk while they're fighting. And I just think Battle is just going to step through that fire. I don't think Randy Brown has the biggest power in the world. I think he's got some really good technique, but I think the power might be lacking. I think Battle's going to step through that lane, his own stuff. We've seen Randy Brown get hurt before. We've seen him get rocked before. We've seen him get knocked out before, numerous occasions. And I think Battle's prime here, man. I think he's going to step into that, and I think he's not going to be deterred. And I think he can win this fight anywhere, but I see him finishing rude boy Randy Brown here. And I like Battle big, boys.
Nicely done, Bri. Convicted on Brian Battle. KenFlo Rude Boy was ranked at one point in time. Great human being. He's been on the podcast with us. He has won 7 of his last 8, and the only loss in there to Jack Della Maddalena in fucking Perth. Yeah. But Randy Brown plus 190 here. What do you think, Kenny, as he goes for a 4th straight win?
Yeah, I had an opportunity to meet Randy. Awesome dude. And again, another one of these guys that is a true martial artist. I think that this is going to be a very tough fight for him, however, against Brian Battle, a guy who maybe isn't the most orthodox fighter, doesn't do things in a traditional way, but boy, is he tough. And he's another guy that I like a lot. I've slept on Brian Battle. He has surprised me many times. And how about him in France, just, dissing the whole country and being like, all right, I'm out here. Take it easy, guys. So I'm not sure we will see him back in France anytime soon. However, the dude is confident in his abilities, and he is a nasty, nasty prick, John. He likes to get right in your face, and there's a couple different ways he can win. Yes, he's got some decent power. I do think Randy Brown is the better striker. However, Brian Battle wins this fight by taking this fight to the ground and making it a grind. Randy Brown is the more technical fighter, and I would say Brian Battle is the nastier fighter. This dude is there to do harm. Now, based on the odds, I kind of like Randy Brown here. If he's able to establish his range with his jab and with those kicks to keep Battle on the outside, I think he could win this fight. Has to be very defensively responsible here, though, against a very dangerous dude, Brian Battle. Is it enough for me to put money on it? We will see.
We'll find out later and place your bets. That's what they call teasing the business. Plus 190, the number next to Randy Brown right now on DraftKings Sportsbook. And thanks to everybody joining us live, wherever you may be watching, as we begin the pay-per-view week here on the Anik and Florian podcast. And now we get to a fight at featherweight, and certainly a fight, Bri, that could have been on pay-per-view.
Yeah.
The oft-avoided number 5 ranked contender, Movsar Evloev, is minus 250, taking on number 9, Aljamain Sterling, who is plus 205. Sterling makes good on the featherweight debut against Calvin Kattar. Now, though, Bri, a decidedly different challenge, stylistically and otherwise, as he draws the undefeated, suffocating Movsar Evloev. How do you see it playing out?
Man, yeah, this fight should be on the pay-per-view. I mean, I know we're buddies with Aljo. We're close with Ray. I mean, I don't know how they do it. I know the UFC knows what they're doing. This should be on the pay-per-view. As far as this fight goes, man, God, this is putting my mind in an old goddamn pretzel because Sterling is such a good grappler, but we've never seen him really defensively grappling. You got to go all the way back to Brian Caraway where he lost. I think it was a UFC debut or one of his early fights where he lost. And, he got taken down like 5 or 6 times and it just wasn't really his game. His game is taking guys down, backpacking them, get him on top, beating them up, or with that awkward style on the feet, throw his kicks, throw his awkward hands and kind of move around a little bit. How you say his name, John? I struggle.
We're going Evloev.
Evloev. That's a fucking
how about Movsar? How about you drop a fucking Movsar on him?
We'll go with Movsar. Movsar Evloev. I can't say his fucking name. Anyway, he is, I think, the more natural 145er. I think Aljo's big, but I don't know if he's a big 145er like this. He's only really grappled with 35ers. Movsar is big for this spot, and he's very good at what he does. His stand-up on the feet is getting better as well, and he's really elite on top. So even though I went Homer with the Weidman pick, even though it really wasn't Homer, I'm going to go opposite here. I'm going to go Movsar Evloev. I can't say his fucking name, but I'm going to place a bet on him over Aljo. It's going to be I think a close fight, but I just think he's going to be a step ahead in the grappling.
And you just better hope this dude doesn't become champion because you might have to pronounce.
I'll practice. I'll fucking practice till I got it.
KenFlo, Movsar, and in fairness, it's one of the names that us play-by-play announcers all disagree on, and we all pronounce it our own ways. But I stand by Movsar Evloev. He was to face Ilia Topuria, KenFlo, in January of 2022. That fight went away. Would have been interesting had that matchup happened. All this guy does is win. Narrowly got past Arnold Allen, as you all know all too well, KenFlo. That was all the way back in January, UFC 297. So some real quick numbers for you, KenFlo. So Movsar Evloev only fought one time in 2023. That was against the late replacement Diego Lopez at UFC 288. Memorable fight, of course, right? Think about all that has happened for Diego Lopez since that fateful UFC debut against Movsar at UFC 288, May of 2023, right? Lopez has gone 5-0. Since that time, and beaten Gavin Tucker, Pat Sabatini, Sadiq Youssef, Dan Ige, and Brian Ortega. Evloev has one fight in that time against Arnold Allen. So a little bit of the forgotten man, but Kenny, you know how good he is. How do you think he fares against Aljo this weekend?
Yeah, this is a very interesting fight between two very talented grapplers, and I'm still not quite sure just how good Evloev is. And I think it's going to be a grappler's delight. Now, who is the better grappler? Who is the better takedown artist? That's who's going to win this fight. And as Brian mentioned, we haven't seen Sterling really get attacked when it comes to wrestling. Like, we haven't seen him have to defend repeatedly against other guys that are going to be aggressive with their initiation into body connections for takedowns. And I think that Evloev is definitely going to be that guy. Now, maybe Sterling switches things up, establishes his distance, and he decides to be the predator and back Evloev up. I think that's going to be his best play here. He cannot be defensive here. Not to mention, it's just not a place where Aljo is going to be at his best, in my opinion. I think he can do some certain things, maybe defensively with some funk style counters and things like that. But I think he does best when he's initiating his offense and when he's leading the dance. So I think it's very important for him to be able to do that. And just based on that, John, I like the underdog here at plus 205. I think Sterling is a very interesting underdog here. And, again, will I put my money where my mouth is? Perhaps.
Man,
5K to spend coming up in about 20 minutes. Next up, though, at welterweight, Themba Gorimbo, minus 162, taking on 14th ranked Vicente Luque, who comes back plus 136. So, Bri, Gorimbo tabbed as the replacement for Nick Diaz here, but he was preparing as if this fight was his all along. I think that is reflective in the betting line. It's been a full training camp. Gorimbo's won 4 in a row since he was submitted by AJ Fletcher in his 2023 UFC debut. Gorimbo favored to make it 5 in a row and take Vicente Luque's number. BP, how do you see it playing out?
I like Gorimbo's story. I like his, he's improving every time I see him fight. However, this is a big jump. I mean, people are sleeping on Luque. He's been knocked out in his last 2 of 3. He's been knocked out, which is very rare for him because he is Iron Chin, but he's only 33 years old. Yes, he's got a wealth of experience. Yes, he might be MMA old, but the dude is still really elite on the feet. His darts choke, his front chokes all together are insanely good. Cuervo has been grappling. He took Nico Price down 7 times last time out. On the feet, he got in trouble on the exchanges. He didn't get hurt or anything, but he did get clipped a few times on the feet. You can't play that game with Luque. Luque's got real deal power. He's got crisp hands, and I feel like he wants it now. I feel like he stumbled. I feel like he knows now. He hasn't really been right since the Bilal Muhammad fight. I think since that fight, he's got some wins, but I just feel like he hasn't been back. I feel like he's back now. I've been following his training on social media, and I feel like he wants his fight. I like it. I like him at plus money as well. I think he's going to submit Cuervo here. I think Cuervo's going to come in for a sloppy shot, get his fucking neck taken home. So give me Luque.
Vicente Luque, Kenny, has been a real soldier for the UFC. He made his debut in 2015, lost that fight to Michael Graves, I think. And at the time, he was 7-5-1 as a pro. He then won 10 of his next 11, and the only loss in there was to Leon Edwards. He's been ranked forever. He's still only 33, 22nd UFC appearance, and coming in off a loss to New Mansa Joaquin Buckley back in March. KenFlo, your mic is hot.
So I think that Luque is a very good fighter offensively. Defensively is where it's tricky for me. And yes, he's 33 years old. But MMA years may beg to differ there. He's been hit a lot, and that's a part of it. It's like, if the story is that you are repeatedly having to come back to get your wins, if the story is that you got beaten and bloodied up, and then still found a way to win, it is extremely freaking impressive. You are an absolute warrior. But of course, durability is real, and over time, your chin just isn't going to be the same. And that's my concern, is that you kind of have this gradually, and then all of a sudden effect in fighting where, okay, he's got a great chin, and all of a sudden it is gone and you don't get it back. And that is my concern here. And I think Cuervo is a talented enough fighter where he can maybe catch him. I think Luque's best bet for winning this fight is actually with his grappling. I think he needs to take this fight to the ground. That's where he wins this fight. And for Cuervo, he's got to be on point with his takedown defense. If he's able to do this, I like Cuervo here. But, I'm not sure I'll touch this from a betting standpoint. I do think there's some value on both sides, however. But I'm not sure I trust the chin of Luque at this stage.
Good work on the handicap by both of you guys. That brings us to the featured prelim in the light heavyweight division. Number 12, Dominic Reyes, minus 340, taking on 13th ranked Anthony Lionheart Smith, who comes back at plus 270. And there's only one handicapping angle for me, and it's a really sad one here. And if you don't follow Anthony Lionheart Smith on Instagram, you don't know that a few weeks ago, while we were in New York City and Anthony Smith was there to be part of our ESPN MMA coverage, his best friend and head coach and longtime jiu-jitsu coach, Scott Morton, passed away. And I just can't even picture a fighter meeting with Anthony without seeing Scott. I can't picture an inspection zone seeing Anthony Smith without his right-hand man, Scott Morton. And I just don't know how he competes with a heart that is just so heavy. And you may remember when Anthony Smith lost his mother a few years ago. And I think maybe, if memory serves, he competed pretty well after the fact, but didn't win. I just don't know how he handles this. And he sort of intimated to me privately, like, this is just as bad as it gets. So I submit that to you folks, because I didn't even think Anthony was going to compete. So he's plus 270. Dom Reyes is minus 340. With that out of the way, BP, how do you see this light heavyweight featured prelim playing out?
Well, my condolences go to Anthony Smith and Scott's family. I was going to get a little hard on Anthony Smith here. I had some wisecracks. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to simply pick Dominic Reyes to win. That was my pick all along. I just think he's a little more athletic. I think the Jacoby fight finally got him back on track as what we want to see Dominic Reyes as. He had a lot of dark years there, and I think there's a lot of talent in that guy. A lot of it's between his ears, and I think he may be that confidence boost of knocking out Jacoby like he did is going to get him a win here over Anthony Smith. The line is really high, though. I wish it was a little bit closer, but give me Dom Reyes.
KenFlo, Anthony Smith last competed against Roman Dolidze at UFC 303. That fight was a late add to that card, and it came just 7 weeks after Smith had submitted Vitor Petrino in Brazil, so perhaps not the best career decision by Smith to take that fight. And then, of course, Reyes, man. I mean, the whole sport felt great for him. Finally able to exhale after that Dustin Jacoby KO. That was his first win since 2019. Goes for 2 straight here. KenFlo, your thoughts?
Yes, sir. And it was a sweet KO at that. And I think this is a good matchup for Reyes here against a guy who is dealing with a lot here in Anthony Lionheart Smith. I think that's a lot to deal with. But more than anything else, I think that on the feet, he's going to encounter a lot of issues when it comes to striking. Now, he has a very unorthodox style that could serve him well here against Reyes, who tends to try to find his rhythm out there. But I think, Smith's best chance here is by taking this fight to the ground. And I hesitate and picking him because I think he's going to struggle on the feet when it comes to takedowns against someone like Reyes. I think that's where the athleticism of Dom is going to come into play. It's going to help him here, stop a lot of those takedowns and allow him to kind of counter Anthony Smith. And as long as he's making good decisions out there, I think this is Reyes' fight to lose. So give me Dom in this one.
All right, that brings us to the pay-per-view main card. The opener in the featherweight division, Nate Landwehr, -142, Doo Ho Choi, +120. Nate the Train trying to make it 5 wins in his last 6. He memorably knocked out Jamal Emmers in his last start. That was in Atlantic City back in March. Choi on the other side, maybe getting untracked here a little bit. Hasn't fought all that often, but he stopped Bill Algeo in July, sort of reignited his UFC career. Huge slot for these guys, BP. How do you see it playing out? Landwehr the favorite, Doo Ho Choi the dog.
Nate the Train, look at his bicep. I mean, the guy is, and I mean, you got to watch him, right? He's must-see TV. I'm so glad he's on the pay-per-view here. And Doo Ho Choi, this guy can crack. I mean, he looks like a 12-year-old boy that's like in a K-pop band, but this dude can knock you the fuck out. He took some time off. I know he has some injuries. He had the military service, came back, got a good win against Bill Algeo. And this fight's going to go one or 2 ways. I'm predicting the future here, right? Nate the Train has a problem with getting hit and getting hurt early. We've seen it before. Doo Ho Choi, round 1 knockout is a great ticket to have in your hand. But if he doesn't get Nate out in round 1 and Nate comes back from getting clipped, Nate the Train is going to train him over and just bulldoze him into the 2nd, 3rd round and eventually TKO him. I like Nate here a lot. I'm a big Nate Landwehr fan. I think he's motivated. I think he's ready. I think he's going to get clipped. He's going to get hurt, but he's going to get up and he's going to power through. And we're going to look at a 2nd or 3rd round finish. And that's going to be one of the fights tonight, I think.
Nate Landwehr, -142. KenFlo, Doo Ho Choi comes back +120. How do you see this one playing out at 145 pounds?
This is a tricky one. I think that, I still don't know what kind of Doo Ho Choi we're going to see out there. No idea. I think Landwehr is tough as nails. He's going to get hit at a certain point. But I agree with Brian. This could very well be fight of the night, type stuff here. Who wins this fight? Not so confident in that regard. I would be leaning towards Nate a little bit to try to get things done, especially when it comes to his grappling. That's where he should probably take this fight, take Choi down to the ground.
Right.
That's where we've seen him most vulnerable. So I like Nate here.
All right, back-to-back featherweight tilts to open the pay-per-view. Next up, 13th ranked Bryce Mitchell, -675 and climbing, taking on Crone Gracie, who is +490. First appearance of 2024 for Thug Nasty. Of course, first fight since that brutal knockout loss at the hands of Josh Emmett back in UFC 296. Crone Gracie, now 36, made his UFC debut against Alex Caceres in 2019. He fought twice that year, just once since. It was a loss to Charles Jourdain at UFC 288. And Brian, now he is back to face Thug Nasty. Bryce Mitchell live on pay-per-view. Your thoughts?
This fight's so intriguing to me because Crone's such a unique guy. He's a very interesting guy. This must be something that he wanted to get off his surfboard, to get away from his crystals, to get out of his room, to take this fight. This must be something that really jumped out at him. And I think it's a good matchup for him. I mean, Bryce Mitchell takes everyone down. He's not going to take Crone down, is he? If he does, he's going to be in some problems, right? I mean, Crone Gracie's elite where he fights at. But you looking at the Crone Gracie against Charles Jourdain, it was a weird fight. He blamed it on something. I don't know what his excuse was about the way he stood up and didn't really go for takedowns. But I think the stand-up is going to be interesting here. It's not like Bryce Mitchell's this world-class guy, He's kind of, stay stagnant since he's been in Arkansas. And I don't mean that negatively. I just feel like he hasn't gotten any better. He's good at what he does, and that's take you down and grind you out, maybe submit you, maybe beat you up, possibly win by decision. If you can't do that against a Gracie, then you're going to stand up with them. And I think maybe on paper, Bryce might have better stand up, but what has his chin been through? What is he going to come back? Is he going to be gun shy? What is he looking like after the Josh Emmett? I know Chrome Gracie's not Josh Emmett, but that was one hell of a knockout. You're going to be a little timid when you get in there. How are you going to feel when you get your first hit? I like Chrome Gracie here, man. That's a big fucking number. I can't pass that up. I mean, if this hits the ground, Chrome can lock it up. Bryce maybe thinks he's better on the ground. I don't know. I'm so interested to see this fight, but when you're hanging plus 490 on me, I'm going to take a Gracie because he can win it quickly. It was something that we don't know. It's MMA. Anything can happen. So give me Chrome Gracie.
Yeah, Kenny, I love Bryce Mitchell as a human being, as a fighter, wildly entertaining. Going to be interesting to see the response from the Josh Emmett fight here. But, man, it is crazy to see minus 675 next to his name. Chrome Gracie comes back plus 490. I do know Mitchell has gotten different looks outside of Arkansas, but I believe his home base is still there as far as his training camp. KenFlo, what do you have for us, I should say, on the 45ers?
Yeah, listen, I totally understand why Brian is going with Chrome Gracie. I think that it's a pretty smart pick. Why? Because Bryce Mitchell does have the propensity for taking a lot of his fights down to the ground, and he likes his chances there, and may like his chances there against even someone like the great Chrome Gracie. And I think that Crone is extremely tough. He's extremely durable, and he does have the equivalent of that knockout punch when it comes to the submission game. But because of his nerd out a little bit on his grappling, he kind of needs a continuous run through when it comes to jiu-jitsu. Like, he needs you to continually grapple him for him to get that upper hand. Whereas if you're able to kind of press the pause button a little bit and stop him from continually advancing his position, it breaks up his flow of how he wants to do things. And I think that's what Bryce Mitchell needs to do here, is to find those home base positions where he can slow Chrome Gracie down, block him a little bit, beat him up a little bit, get back to the feet, rinse, wash, repeat. If that's how he plans on going to the ground, yeah, not a bad idea. But if he decides to go to the ground thinking he's going to put Chrome Gracie in a twister or, pass his guard and submit him, that is not the way to go about this fight against Chrome Gracie, in my opinion. I think Bryce Mitchell is most likely going to be the better striker here. Not that he is known for his striking necessarily, but he still should be the better striker here and should be the better fighter overall against someone like Chrome Gracie, who I think hasn't really stepped out of his comfort zone to become a mixed martial arts fighter. I still think he's trying to show the art of the Gracie family. And that's not what you can do here in 2024 in the UFC. It's just too advanced and too tough of a sport. So anyways, I'm leaning the way of Bryce Mitchell. Not going to put money. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not going to put money down on that. But I do see some value on Chrome Gracie for a sub win.
Well, we'll see what version of Chrome Gracie shows up against Bryce Mitchell this weekend live at UFC 310. Next up, feature bout on pay-per-view in the heavyweight division. Number 2, Cyril Gane, minus 380. Third-ranked Alexander Volkov is plus 275. Rematch of a fight that took place at the UFC Apex over 5 rounds back in 2021. So that was a main event, 25-foot octagon. Gane won by unanimous decision, 50-45 times 2, 49-46 on the other card. Bri, as for Volkov, he's won major titles outside the UFC, now on the cusp of that elusive first UFC title shot if he can exact some revenge here. Your thoughts on Volkov and Gane, Act 2?
Yeah, these final three fights, in my opinion, I think the underdogs are really interesting to look at. And I think Volkov is really interesting to look at here in a 3-round fight where I think Gane got exposed a little bit by the great John Jones. Gane got taken down and looked a little lost in there. Volkov can take guys down. He has submissions on his record. Is he John Jones? No, of course not. But he's a big body, 6'8" dude that can grab you up and take you down. The problem is getting a hold of Gane. Gane's so athletic. And I saw some sparring footage of him this week of him training. He looks really good. He looks really light on his feet. He's changing stances better than ever, and he's hard to get a hold of. He's hard to hit. I see him outpointing Volkov again, but I have this thing in the back of my mind. If Volkov can get a hold of him, take him down, this is an interesting fight here. I like plus 275 of Volkov, but I think Gane is just a little more athletic, a little more quick on the feet, and I think just his striking overall is going to be better in this spot.
Yeah, I feel like Ciryl Gane, Kenny, might be the best pure athlete in this heavyweight division, so I'm not surprised that BP landed on that adjective, athletic. I thought he looked great in stopping Sergey Spivak in a main event. That was all the way back in September of 2023. So we haven't seen Ciryl Gane this year. This fight was to go down in Abu Dhabi. It was a knee injury to Volkov that forced the delay. It's a different version of Volkov than Ciryl Gane is going to fight sort of on the tail end of a global pandemic, but nonetheless, Gane a pretty big favorite here this weekend. Kenny, how do you see it playing out?
Yeah, listen, a lot of things can change in 3 years, right? And I think that Ciryl Gane, as you mentioned, is one of the most athletic guys in the division. I would say it's probably between him and Tom Aspinall. But he's just so smooth. He's a smooth operator in how he slides and glides around the octagon. He knows when to pressure. He knows when to back off. He knows how to be evasive. And that's going to be the key against a very tall and dangerous Volkov, who has been improving his grappling in general. His wrestling has improved a great deal since the last time they fought. His jiu-jitsu on the ground has improved a great deal since the last time they fought. Is it enough to deal with someone like Ciryl Gane, though? I'm not so sure. I think we'll actually see Ciryl Gane maybe hit some takedowns, a little bit of ground and pound from top position. I don't see Volkov getting on top. Now, what Brian was saying, if he is able to hit some of those takedowns, he can definitely be a problem for Gane, who, you know, again, as good as he is athletically and technically on the feet, he does still suffer from some of those vulnerabilities on the ground. Still not the best grappler in the world. So that's where Volkov can maybe expose him. Are his takedowns consistent or good enough to get it done? Probably not. So I'm going to lead the way of Ciryl Gane. Again, it being a 3-rounder here, I think also is kind of an advantage for him. Doesn't give enough time to Volkov to maybe pull off a win. So give me Ciryl Gane.
Yeah, I don't know if Volkov's going to be shooting takedowns, but he does have submissions. We'll see if he can find one potentially against Ciryl Gane. All right. Co-main event scheduled for 5 rounds if needed in the welterweight division. Number 3, Shavkat Rakhmonov, -380. 7th ranked Ian Machado Gary is +300. Rakhmonov relinquishing his earned title shot, Kenny, to take this fight 6-0 in the UFC, 18-0 overall with 18 finishes. Machado Gary 15-0, 8 in the UFC after the win over Michael Venom Page at UFC 303 back in June. Kenny, I'm going to lead with you here. We have talked a lot offline about this fight. Time for a prediction. Rakhmonov a near 4-1 favorite against Ian Machado Gary.
Yeah, Shavkat Rakhmonov. He is multifaceted. He is dangerous. He is durable. He is tough. He is well conditioned. He comes from a great camp. He has knockout power. He has submission ability. This guy is a juggernaut and has proven to be so in that very competitive welterweight division. He is taking on a guy in Ian Machado Gary who, like him, is also undefeated. And I think Ian has probably had the tougher schedule, actually, in a lot of ways, in that he's faced a variety of styles. He has more minutes inside the octagon. And I think that the fact that he has traveled around and trained with a lot of different people, a lot of different minds, I think is going to help him here. I don't love the fact that he didn't have maybe a full camp for Shavkat Rakhmonov. However, I think he knows him well enough where he knows what he needs to do to win this fight. What does he need to do to win this fight? He needs to be defensively responsible. He needs to be sharp throughout every round of this 5-round fight. And he's got to stop the takedowns. If he's able to do that, he wins this fight. That's a lot of ifs. That's a lot of stuff that he needs to do. But I really like his chances here. Plus 300, give me Ian Machado Gary. This is a phenomenal striker. I think he's faster than Rakhmonov. I think he's a better striker than Rakhmonov. Can he prevent the takedowns? Can he avoid those big shots? That's what this fight comes down to. The easy pick is Shavkat Rakhmonov, but I like Ian Machado Gary in this spot.
Nicely laid out, Kenny Florian. Last win for Shavkat Rakhmonov came against Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. That was UFC 296 last December, Bryce. So there was the submission of Jeff Neal at UFC 285, but just one fight in the last 20 months or so for Shavkat Rakhmonov. 5 rounds if needed here against Ian Machado Gary, who leaves Las Vegas with the win in the co-main event BP.
Kenny's got me fired up. Now he's going to make me feel like a pussy if I pick Shavkat. I mean, it's the easy pick, right? I'm pussying out. No, I had a hard time picking this fight. Kenny nailed it on the head. Ian Gary, I know he gets hated on a lot, but he's an elite guy. His striking is superior. than Romanov. Romanov's been hurt quite a bit outside the octagon and in the octagon. If he doesn't, and he recovers well, he's got a heart of a lion, but Ian Gary on the counters and his striking is so fluid that if he hurts Rakhmonov, he is a finisher. He can put him out. The big question is, and this is the rumor was, on Reddit or whatever, that Rakhmonov knocked out Gary in training. My little birdies, my little sources say that never happened, but Ray touched on it. What I have heard happened was during the grappling exchanges. I know we're Allen Iverson. We're talking about practice here. Rakhmonov got the better of Gary in the grappling. That was many years ago. Gary has now went to Brazil and trained with Bronx, and he trained with Damian Maia. I believe he did this camp in Thailand. He's bouncing all around, right? Thailand, Bang Tao Muay Thai, which he's going to be super sharp on the feet, which I think he needs. The question is, and the if is what does this takedown defense look like? We haven't seen it much. He's given up 1 or 2 takedowns. He's popped right back up in the octagon. That's what you have to do against Shavkat Rakhmonov here. I was leaning Ian Gary myself, but I don't want to take that away from Kenny because I feel like Kenny's going to put some scratch on him. So I'm going to take Rakhmonov. This is a 50-50 fight, but Kenny's right. Plus 300 on a guy like Ian Gary. Take a shot there, but that's 3-1 on your money.
All right, that brings us to the main event for the UFC's undisputed flyweight championship. Alexandre Pantoja in defense, minus 285, taking on Kai Asakura, who is plus 230. Third defense for Pantoja. The promotional newcomer Kai Asakura is 21-4. He is a knockout artist, jiu-jitsu purple belt, does have some submissions as well, has wins over the likes of Manel Kape and Kyoji Horiguchi. But this 2024 version, KenFlo, of Alexandre Pantoja figures to be a beast, unlike anything that Kai Asakura has faced prior. Who do you like, KenFlo, in the main event at UFC 310?
Okay. In doing my analysis and video study, typically I already have a strong lean, and many times, not all the time, many times after I watch video, it strengthens my position. This was one where after watching video, I hesitated and actually switched my pick. Why?
How about this guy, man?
Yeah. So with Pantoja, Pantoja is such a fun fighter to watch, man. This guy is constantly moving forward, as we talked about. He's got some nasty skills on the ground. It is without doubt that he is the better grappler here. I don't think Asakura wants to be on the ground, certainly not on his back against Pantoja for too long here in this fight. He does not want to do that. However, Pantoja has a thing that he consistently does, and he dips his head down and he kind of throws some wild strikes, which throws himself off balance a little bit. Not sometime, it's almost every time. And that is what concerns me the most here. Asakura is a sniper. That knee is absolutely devastating. The way that he throws it, it's built specifically for guys who want to lower their level and shoot in on his legs or on his waist. Pantoja did show the ability to clinch, have an upper body clinch with someone like Steve Erceg, and he did that well. So hopefully they're onto it, that's the way they need to enter. They also need to, however, change the way that they go about their striking here in this fight. If they don't change that, I think Asakura wins this fight. Not only wins this fight, but maybe wins this fight by knockout. I think Asakura is an unusual kind of striker that gets you to play right into his game, right into his hands, and that is dangerous. And I think if Pantoja is coming into this fight too confident, overly confident, I think he can find himself in some trouble here. If Pantoja is able to get to that clinch safely and take this fight to the ground, Pantoja wins this fight, maybe even dominates this fight. But with the odds the way that they are at plus 230, I kind of like Asakura's chances here. And again, this surprised me in analyzing this fight. I did not expect to do this. I had Pantoja all day. After watching the video, I was completely confused. Give me Kai Asakura here.
Wow. Nicely done with the film study, Kenny Florian. Brian Petrie, who do you like in the flyweight title fight this weekend, kid?
Looks like Kenny got that ESPN Plus and that Fight Pass award. This guy's fucking breaking down everything. Listen, I agree with Kenny. The final 3 fights, the underdogs are very interesting. And I took a hard look at Asakura, and I'm an MMA nerd. I watch really everything. And I be honest with you, I slept on this guy. He kind of slipped through the cracks for me. I'd heard a little bit about him because I knew he fought Manel Kopp twice and then Horiguchi, but never really took my time. And I took my time this weekend on Thanksgiving Day. Actually, I was watching him, and he's something special. He's an aggressor. He's powerful. That knee, either to the body or the head, is amazing. It's unbelievable. You can't read it. You know it's coming. You can't stop it. And he has finished some really high level guys with that. And I love Japanese culture. I love the Japanese spirit of fighting. Japanese fighters are usually guys I kind of root for. And the fact that there's never been a Japanese MMA or UFC champion is shocking to me. But this is the guy that's going to do it. He might be the best bet. However, Pantoja is so fucking wild, man. This guy's very good. An incredibly underappreciated, underrated guy. He should be on everyone's pound for pound list. And he's not talked about enough because maybe he's 125. Maybe he's not this big, huge personality, but the guy's fights are always exciting. I mean, him and Urseg was a war. This dude is the real deal. And now with him, he has to take this fight to the ground. We all kind of know that. We want him to take the fight to the ground. I think he's gonna win when the fight gets to the ground. Asakura back in the day when he fought Hiramosa, who fought in the Ultimate Fighter, who beat Pantoja, actually, he just took Asakura down and was kind of a wrap. But that was many years ago. Asakura needs to prevent the takedown. I think Pantoja needs to get it. But Pantoja does this thing where he goes, hey, listen, bro, I got a fucking chin. Let's just throw a little bit, right? And Asakura is going to sign up for that. Pantoja's got a great chin. Asakura's been knocked out 3 times. 3 of his 4 losses have been by knockout. He's fallen on a sword before, but that's not a really strategy I'm going to tell Pantoja to do. I'm like Kenny. I was 50-50 on this fight. Usually 50-50 I go dog, but I'm going to go Pantoja here. I think it's an interesting fight here. I love that Asakura kind of skipped the line too. Hopefully this lets other champions know and other organizations like, hey, if you're the real deal somewhere and you want to come in the UFC and kind of skip the line right here, come on over. Welcome to the fucking show, boys. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I like Pantoja for my pick, and I landed on that, and I'm pretty confident in it now. But Kenny's got me shaking a little bit.
All right, we'll see how it plays out. Alexandre Pantoja has never been finished as a mixed martial arts pro. It is time now for Place Your Bets, brought to you by johnanik.com, where you can get 15% off of your entire Anik and Florian podcast merchandise order with promo code One More Sleep. First, we update the standings from UFC Fight Night. Yan versus Figueiredo. Petrie was just north of $1,000 to the positive on the year. You had $500 on Song Kanan, which was a loser. You did hit your straight bet on Yan at minus 298 to get 167.79 back. So for the week, the net loss, $332 and change. Year to date, $672.55. Kenny Florian was about $2,000 to the negative. You placed one bet, though, a $1,000 2-leg parlay on Petr Yan and Yan Xiaonan. That hit with ease for KenFlo. The price on Xiaonan was minus 198. So the parlay payout plus 101. You made $1,010 year to date, minus $1,061.51. So the deficit $1,734.06.
Wasn't that a parlay? Yan
Yes.
and Yan? Okay.
Yes.
And it was only 1,000.
It paid plus 101. It was minus 298 for Petr Yan, minus 198 for Yan Xiaonan. So $1,000 2-leg parlay pays out plus 101. So you made $1,010. Your deficit is 1,734. You got $5,000 for the final pay-per-view of the year. 5 bands, Bride, to spend at UFC 310. Fire away, BP.
Yeah, so I was thinking about Butch putting 5K on one guy that I love, right? But I got a DM. The guy was like, yeah, man, like I really like when you spread your money out. I got actually multiple DMs. So I'm going to spread the money out for the people. Let Kenny get a fighting chance. Let him, fight to the bell here. But I do love Brian. And Kenny and I, by the way, I don't know if anybody was paying attention. We're opposite of a lot of these fights. So one of us is going to have a good fucking night. But give me 2K on Brian Battle.
Okay, 2K on Brian Battle.
Brian Battle, 2K. Give me 1K on Pantoja.
Okay.
Give me 1K on Nate the Train because of the bicep. And then the final 2 bets, give me 500 on Crone Gracie.
Okay.
And 500 on Vicente Luque. Win it with some dogs there, baby.
Nicely closed out with the underdogs. All right, KenFlo, $5,000. How you spreading it out or otherwise?
Interesting. Okay, so I'm gonna play a parlay with Gone and Weidman for $1,000.
Okay.
And then I'm gonna do this is the biggest bet that I'm making, and it's not great because of the odds, but I'm putting 3,000 on Reyes.
3,000 on Dominic Reyes. And $1,000 left.
Yes, sir. We got I'm gonna put Where the heck is it? Okay, sorry. 250 on Aljo,
Okay.
250 on Gary,
Yep.
and $500 on Asakura.
Nice, kid. I like the way you close that out. All right. Plenty of action to be had at DraftKings Sportsbook. If you want more from Brian Petrie at Brian Petrie MMA on social media, also hosts the MMA Takes Podcast. BP, nicely done, my man.
Thanks,
we'll talk
boys.
to you next week.
Johnny, have a good show. And I guess the award show's on Thursday. Hopefully we win. Hopefully we win, boys. We deserve it.
Could you imagine? Could you imagine?
Oh,
Hey, thank you, buddy.
Thanks, boys.
Enjoy the show. Yes, we will be present at the World MMA Awards coming up this Thursday night. We'll see if somehow, some way, the Anik and Florian podcast can take home a trophy in the category of mixed martial arts programming. We got to get on out of here. Nearly 2 hours live today. Hopefully you stayed from start to finish. We are back with you on Monday. We will recap UFC 310 and look ahead to the upcoming UFC Fight Night. Last of the year, Covington and Buckley live from Tampa, Florida. Thanks to Ray Longo and Cody Merrow as well. For KenFlo, I'm John Anik. We will talk to you on the back end of the pay-per-view. Enjoy the fights this weekend. Thank you all for watching and listening. Until next time, y'all later.